Good evening. My name is Peter Noonan. I'm president of Supportive Living, Inc., and welcome to our fall event, The Sounds of Music, the Neuroscience of Music in the Mind. Tonight we have two goals. First, we'd like to entertain you. We have some fun and uplifting songs performed by friends of ours from the Berklee School of Music. We'd also like to educate you, specifically on the therapeutic benefits of music, and most importantly for us, on those individuals living with brain injury. We'll look at music from a few perspectives. You'll see firsthand the amazing results of neuromusic therapy from Brian Harris. Brian is the founder and CEO of MedRhythms. You will also hear about the emotional and mental benefits of music from Dr. Kathleen Howland. Dr. Howland is a professor of music therapy at the Berklee School of Music. And you'll meet Ernesto Diaz. Ernesto is also a professor at Berklee. He teaches in the percussion department. He also conducts and performs music and has been known to perform with the likes of Gloria Estefan and the Boston Pops. Tonight, Ernesto and his friends will be here to perform music for us. Ernesto also teaches percussion at SLI's residential facilities, and tonight he will share some of those classes with us, pointing out the different benefits that the residents receive during the class.
Do you stretch? Yeah. It's good to stretch.
I would now like to introduce our first presenter, Brian Harris.
Thank you, Peter, for that warm introduction. And thank you to Supportive Living for the work that you're doing to impact the lives of those living with brain injuries. And I'm thankful for your focus on music here tonight, too, and it's an honor for me to be here with you. And today I'm going to talk at a very high level about music and neuroscience and how that can be clinically applied to help people recover from brain injuries, things like movement, language, and cognition. And I'm going to share my screen here to walk you through some of these slides. Now, all of this work on music, we've focused on music for this evening, and it's around this premise that music has power. And I think that that's something that we can all agree on, that music has power. And when we think about what type of power does music have, what kind of power does it have? You know, we think about those things where music can shift our emotions. It can build us up. It can help us feel happy, feel sad, feel motivated. It can get our adrenaline going. It certainly can bring people together socially. Certainly also we know that there's types of music that can speak things when words fail. And that's what we consider to be the social science power of music, about how music makes us feel. But with advancements in neuroimaging and neuroscience technology, we've now begun to understand the power of music through the lens of neuroscience. And that's what I'm going to be focusing on tonight, is shifting that lens from music as a social science to purely music as a neuroscience. And the recent advancement, as I said, in the neuroscience and neuroimaging technology has allowed us to understand music in an objective new way. And everything that I'm going to tell you about tonight briefly applies to 97% of the human population, regardless of age, culture, ability, or disability. Everybody's brain responds the same to music. And it really, at a high level, it comes down to these two principles of global activation and neuroplasticity. And what global activation means is that what the research shows is that when we as humans passively listen to music that we like, it engages the parts of our brain that are responsible for movement, language, attention, memory, emotion. And there's no other stimulus on earth that engages our brain as globally, simultaneously, as music does. Principle number 2 is neuroplasticity, the reason why we can learn new skills as we age, and the reason why people who have injuries to the brain can recover. It's been shown that engaging in music, so learning a new instrument, or casually and informally singing in a choir or singing it at home, or engaging in some of these interventions that I'm about to show you, can aid in the process of neuroplasticity. So when we think about global activation and neuroplasticity, that gives us an enormous new opportunity to help people in a novel way. I'm going to focus on 3 sections tonight very briefly: movement, language, and cognition. When we think about music for movement, it all comes down to the power of rhythm. And I'm going to show you a very brief video here of the power of rhythm. Normally, if I was with you in person, at this point, I would do a live demonstration with somebody in the audience. But given the times, we'll do this via video. This is a man who has Parkinson's disease. And you're going to notice his presentation of as he's walking. with Parkinson's disease, that he's taking very short steps, and he has episodes here and here of what we call freezing of gait, where he's stuck. Parkinson's being a movement disorder, it impacts the way that we move. So he's going to walk back over towards the camera, and you're going to see him have another episode of severe freezing, where essentially his brain is not giving his body the signal to move, and he gets stuck. He's going to turn away from the camera here in just a moment, and he's going to turn on music. Also keep in mind, walking backwards with Parkinson's is also very difficult. But he's going to turn on music that's at an up-tempo, that is up-tempo, and also has a strong beat strength. And you're going to notice the impact that it has on his movements when he walks to the beat of the music. You notice his strides are bigger. Turning doesn't seem to be an issue. Going fast. See the movement in his legs, walking backwards when he steps to the beat of the music. It's an instant and powerful phenomenon. And that ability to walk to the beat of the music is what we call entrainment. And what entrainment is actually our brain's ability to synchronize our motor system to the auditory system. What the research shows is that when we as humans hear a rhythm that repeats in our environment, something that's consistent like a song, that it activates our auditory system, and that our auditory system is subconsciously connected to our motor system via what's called the reticulospinal tract. So that when we hear an external auditory cue like music that's consistent in our environment, it activates our auditory system and subconsciously engages the motor system to move in time with the music. And when I say that's subconscious, meaning we don't have to think about walking to the beat of the music, it happens subconsciously. And in fact, in order for us to not walk to the beat of the music, we actually have to come up with some sort of cognitive strategy to not listen to what's in our environment. And so that auditory and motor system synchrony is called entrainment. And then as we think about implementing this clinically, that comes into play in seeing how people walk to the beat of the music. This idea of entrainment has recently been translated into an intervention called rhythmic auditory stimulation in about the mid-1990s. And this has been studied across neurologic disease or injury, showing how engaging in the intervention improves outcomes like speed, symmetry, stride length, etc., across neurodisease and injury states. So this is a video of me delivering rhythmic auditory stimulation at Spaulding Rehab Hospital in Boston. And this is a man who has had a stroke. You'll notice that he has very short stride length. He's walking with a cane. His right side is affected, so his right side is not taking the same size steps as his left side. We call that asymmetry. He's walking very slowly and he's very rigid. This video is after he's had physical therapy 5 days a week for an hour a day for 3 weeks. So he's had about 15 sessions of therapy at this point. The rest of this video is one 45-minute session. What we do in rhythmic auditory stimulation is we calculate how fast he was walking, 65 steps per minute. We start music at 65 beats per minute to see if they can entrain. So we're going to watch here to see if he can walk to the beat of the music. We see here initially, he's able to step very well to the beat of the music. The goal with him is to increase the tempo of his walking. So we increase the tempo of the music by 5% to see if he can walk faster. And we notice that he does well. And then from here, we thought, well, what happens if we could take the cane away? So he had never walked without a cane prior to this point, but we know that evolutionarily, as human beings, as bipedal beings, we are made to shift our weight between 2 points rather than 3. And we see in the hospital all the time when we teach people to use canes or walkers, it oftentimes can be much more awkward because we're not evolutionarily made to do it. So we thought, let's take the cane away and see if we can get him to entrain between 2 points and not 3. And this is his first time walking post-stroke without a cane. 1, 2, 3. So we see that he does very well. Symmetry is getting a little bit better. Stride length's a little bit short. So we continue to speed up the tempo of the music. So we see some improvements in his stride length here. Continued improvements in symmetry. So over the course of the session, we continue to speed up the tempo of the music. And we see drastic differences here. But the important point is, does the impact last when the music's taken away? So at the end of the session, we remove the music and we ask them to walk again, and we see this level of carryover. Evidence of neuroplasticity, that there's actually a functional change happening when engaging in the music. And so to give you context, here's this baseline video after 3 weeks of physical therapy, 5 days a week for an hour a day to get him to this point. And this is 45 minutes later. So a profound impact of music to the motor system to improve walking. Also been shown to actually aid in neuroplasticity, as I mentioned. Recent research showing that engaging in musical cues to movement can actually induce microstructural change in white matter pathways. This also applies to anything that's motor related, arms, hands, etc. We can use movement, we can use music to improve quality of movements. I know this was very quick. That was the movement section. Now we're going to talk about speech and language, so the impact of music to improve language abilities. At a high level, we know that music or speech is primarily a left-sided brain function. So the left side of our brain is responsible for expressive language. But we know that music, as I said at the beginning, globally activates our brain. So it's equally distributed through our left and right hemisphere. And so oftentimes people who have damage to the left hemisphere of their brain have what's called aphasia. They have the inability to speak expressive language. Comprehension is good, but expressive language is poor. But we know that oftentimes those folks can actually sing even though they can't speak. So we have an intervention that's called melodic intonation therapy, where we can improve somebody's ability to speak through what looks like singing. For example, we try to practice functional phrases that people would need to speak in everyday life. Something like, I need the bathroom. By saying the phrase, I need the bathroom, is primarily a left-sided brain function. But if we simply add a rhythm and intonation to that same phrase, I need the bathroom, that engages the right hemisphere of our brain because it's melodic and rhythmic in nature. So you're going to see this video of a man who's had a stroke, who has severe aphasia, has no expressive language, but has good comprehension. So he understands everything, but no expressive language. Try it again. I'm Peter. You notice in this section that he doesn't get the words exactly right, but he begins to be able to approximate the sounds. I'm Peter. I'm Peter. How are you? How are you? So we did intensive treatment over the course of a couple of months, and this is Peter now.
Hello, I'm Peter. How are you? I am good. Thank you. How are you? You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray.
So a big impact on music for language. And this is research that has shown for people that were not musicians, who have no background in music, that doing intensive melodic intonation therapy can actually change the thickness of what's called the arcuate fasciculus, which is the fiber tract that connects your receptive language area to your expressive language area. So literally showing that engaging in music changes the anatomy of the brain. And this type of intervention can also be administered in community choirs, which at MedRhythms we run, which we see also the big impacts not only to their functional language, but also to the social impact of bringing people together through a singing group. And this is actually a picture of our aphasia choir performing in the Hancock Building downtown Boston. And then very high level of music in cognition. There's interventions for attention, divided attention, alternating attention, neglect that some of our patients suffer with, hemispatial neglect, memory issues, executive function, orientation. And then there's this piece, which I think is some of the most profound research that's been done in the field of music and neuroscience, where they actually looked at people in a vegetative state, so severe brain injuries. And what they found through neuroimaging, where they presented these patients with silence, white noise, recorded music, and live preferred music, what they actually found was that the patients showed higher levels of arousal and awareness in response to live preferred music. Arousal being eye-opening and awareness being interacting with their environment in response to live preferred music. Meaning giving us the questions to try to understand if music has such a profound impact in this population that is so low functioning. Imagine the impact that if we understood this more, that it could have to the system of healthcare. And I always leave people with this, that I'm lucky enough to be able to do this work every day. And that and the experience of doing that along with the research and the growth of this field, I think the better we understand how music impacts the brain, it will change the landscape of global healthcare because it's that important. And the advancements of technology will help us to get there as well. So thank you for your time. It's an honor to be here with you. And thank you again, Supportive Living, for all that you do for this community. It's an honor to be here with you. And this is my contact information. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have. Thank you very much.
My name is Ernesto Diaz. I'm a percussionist, musician, teacher. Been teaching at Berklee for over 25 years and playing in the Boston area for over 40 years. For the last 3 years, I've been teaching at SLI, teaching percussion to residents with pieces based on traditional rhythms from all over the world. The first class, I passed instruments around, and I talked a little bit about the instruments, and we just started with an open jam. And automatically, they picked up their instruments and they were into it. They were enjoying what they were doing. They were creating their own technique. And we quickly actually started to put percussion pieces together. This last class that you're about to see is based on a rhythm from Cuba called conga de comparsa. Conga like the drum. It's carnival music. And in this kind of percussion, in this kind of setting, you can have many drums and bells. For this piece, we did a call and response introduction, and then we had open solo sections where we stop time and each person solos, does an open solo on their instrument. Then I call the group back in with the break, and we all play. Listen to the beat, and as I'm playing, or the other people are playing, think of something, imagine something that would complement and support the whole thing. Here I go. Wait a little bit. You done? And Michael, stop. If you can play it. Beautiful. Steven. is Ernesto, and I'm back here as the musician. When Peter called me a couple of weeks ago to put together a band, I thought of this group of musicians. I know them really well. They're good friends, colleagues, but they're also amazing musicians. I knew we would be able to put all this music together for you in different genres and make it sound wonderful. I hope you do enjoy it, and if you're interested, at the end, the footage of the whole concert is available for you to watch. I hope you will support us, and thank you. And now we'll play St. Thomas by the great Sonny Rollins, and that is in a calypso style. One, two, three.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Howland from Berklee College of Music, where I teach in the departments of music therapy and liberal arts. And there I teach the neuroscience of music, why it matters so much to the human race. And as a music therapist, of course, how it can help people who are battling with significant challenges in their life. So today, in support of Supportive Living, Inc., I'm going to be talking about the emotional and social benefits of music therapy. So I think it would be worth thinking about, well, why is music special? Why is it one of the hottest sectors of neuroscience now? And here is a picture of flutes that were found in a cave, and they're dated to be 35 to 40,000 years old. We know they predate agriculture, and it is thought by many that they predate language. And if you were in one of the caves down the way a piece from those that had the flutes, and you could hear the flute music going on, what would you do? Hang out in the cave where you are, or go where the music is? So the thought is that music helped join us, to combine us, to allow us to not just survive, but to thrive as a species. And it's still that way today. The socialization that music engenders is incredibly supportive, it's incredibly productive from a brain sense, and it's absolutely necessary for brain function. So a lot of people will ask us who are musicians, who are music teachers, about music and the sense that there's a talent. And I'm saying this is a no talent zone. And here's why. When we are born, if I did this, the place of the missing but anticipated beat would be recognized by a newborn's brain, and it will react to it. We come into the world knowing where the beat is. It's something that can't be taught. There are very, very few people in the entire human population that is beat deaf. We also come in with music preferences because we spent the last trimester in the womb hearing sound outside of it. So when my daughter was in my womb, every day I was singing the song I wanted her to know. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And it continues. But if you expose a baby, a fetus, to a song, they will demonstrate recognition of that in the womb. So we come wired with preferences from exposure, but then we develop them throughout life, particularly through our teen years in our 20s. And everybody that I've ever worked with, whether they were intellectually disabled, brain injured, with dementia, they all had their music preferences. This is something that is important in our identities. And we are musical before we develop language and cognition. And in fact, now it's moving in the way that music is key to cognition. And for brain injuries, this should be very much considered. So I don't believe in talent anymore. I believe in aptitude. And most of the entire human population is average, below average, or above average. There's a very small percentage of people who are tone deaf or beat deaf. And therefore, music is accessible to everybody, and it should be made available. And it strongly connects us to our emotions. It can alter our moods readily. So if you're needing to do something and get the energy together for it, you can use music that has medium energy, and then it goes to higher energy like Uptown Funk, and then that's going to help motivate you to get things done. When you're feeling sadly, you can take music that kind of meets you in that sadness, like maybe the blues, and then start to move the energy away from the blues, away from sadness, into something that's perhaps a little more upbeat emotionally and musically. And you can alter your mood, so you can help your emotions and regulate them through music. And that's probably one of the key things a parent does for a child. And when you consider the disordered brain function that happens after a traumatic event, music is ordered. It helps the brain reset itself, to take in stimuli, to make sense of it, to predict what's happening. These are all really important cognitive issues. So when Ernesto starts you out with a nice steady beat and you're finding your place to add to it, and then he changes it a little bit and you start to change with him in what you're doing, that is absolutely great for the brain and aligning functions that are healthy. In music is joy, delight, and absolute hope. When brain injuries happen, you all know at Supportive Living how much repetition you have to do to make gains. How many times you go from sit to stand to practice that. How many times you have to work on saying phrases. And repetition is hard. But in music, repetition is really natural. By putting those phrases that you have to say into the music, you can practice them over and over again. And that's going to help rebuild neural circuits. And the neural circuits that get rebuilt are the ones that you need for the non-musical functions that have been impacted. So let me say that again. That music can help rebuild the circuits by which non-musical functions happen. And just like the people in the caves 45 to 50,000 years ago, music brings us together. And we know during this time of COVID that being together is of critical importance because our brains actually suffer from social isolation and our health suffers significantly from social isolation. And music brings us together. And it brings us such joy. It's working the joy circuitry of your brain over and over again. And one of my favorite joyful groups is called Young at Heart. They're from Northampton, Mass. They have a film out that you can watch together. And they just had a live broadcast a week ago. And they are a group of elders who sing rock and roll and punk music. And it is absolutely marvelous. And now they're doing work in prisons and they're doing work with children's choirs. And so they're taking that social connection, that joyful connection to a variety of different populations who are in need of joy and connection. So I ask you, music has a purpose. Drive music for that purpose. What song will make you feel brave and resilient? When I was in chemotherapy, I used the song, I'll Never Walk Alone. And I never did, but I had to be reminded of it. And the music did that for me. And what songs make you feel happy and joyful? I have to say, Uptown Funk still does it for me. It's just such an upbeat tune and I'm moving around. And then what music makes you feel comforted when you need comfort? For so many in our culture here in Boston, it might be Schubert's Ave Maria. It might be a nice ballad from John Denver. It doesn't matter what it is. It just matters that it matters to you. And again, when you need to feel motivated, it can help you find that sense of purpose, get that traction for motivation. So I'll say in the mornings, I am terrible. In the mornings, I'm so slow. So I start off with music that's really slow, that matches how I feel. A little reggae comes next, and then something that's more upbeat. And I'm ready to work after that. I'm ready to do the work of grading papers and giving each of the people I serve my full attention. Music helps me be of purpose. It helps me be at my best by comforting me, motivating me, embracing me with joy, and giving me the courage to do what I don't always want to do. And you know, music is for life. It is with us from womb to tomb, to the last moments of our life. And I've worked in hospice. It's deeply moving how music still reaches people. It's one of those constants that is always there and available for you. It reminds you of your heritage, the music of your youth, the music of your teens, the music that you built memories around. And those can be very helpful. And it helps us in sickness and in health. It helps us to be our best, to be socially engaged, to be cognitively engaged, and also in sickness, like with the brain injury, to be able to do the hard work of recovery. It's like a lifeline. It's like a lifeline that you can pull toward and find your sense of purpose, find your energy, find repairs to neural circuitry. And I have the picture of this lovely, lovely woman here, Alice Hertz Summer, who was a Holocaust survivor from Theresienstadt. She survived as a pianist, which she played for 3 hours a day until she died at 110. Music is with us for life. And so it is my hope that you all at Supportive Living will have the benefits of the music that serves you well, so that you can make the best recovery that you can, that you have the cognitive engagement of music, that you have the social engagement of music, that you lean into the drumming that you're doing with Ernesto, you make eye contact with one another and drum toward one another, and you have a marvelous time with the beauty and power that music is in each of our lives. Embrace it, run with it, work it so well. I wish you many, many blessings in your work, in your playing together, and in a life that's well worth living. All the best to Supportive Living.
Good evening. My name is Carol Stevens, founder and chairperson of Supportive Living, Inc., commonly referred to as SLI. I would like to tell you the story about my son Scott and his love for music. Early on in life, he showed an interest in drumming, and in the 4th grade, through the school's music department, he received lessons and played in the school band for several years. In May of 1983, his time in the band tragically ended when he was in a car accident which left him in a coma for 9.5 months. During that time, we brought his drumsticks into the hospital in the hopes that would trigger a response. When he finally became conscious, he would hold his drumsticks and tap on his drum. Scott's love of music still exists today. Until the start of COVID-19, he was taking drum lessons at the Real School of Music. At present, with his drumsticks always in hand, Scott continues to play his snare drum and looks forward to attending Ernesto's drum classes at Warren House. I can't tell you what an impression this music program has on Scott and all the residents of SLI. Thank you for supporting this program and everything that SLI does.
For the final piece we did is an open jam session with all these amazing musicians. I hope you enjoy it.
I hope you enjoyed our program. At this time, I would like to acknowledge our sponsors: Brookline Bank, Cummings Foundation, and Sawyer Realty Holdings, LLC, as well as all our other sponsors. In closing, I would like to thank everyone for their support and help over the years. Without that, we would have never been able to accomplish what we have done. Thank you again. Hope to see you soon, and good night.
Well, that concludes this evening's event. We hope you had a little bit of fun. We hope you enjoy the entertainment. We hope you learned a little more about music therapy and the amazing rehabilitative benefits it can bring to individuals, especially individuals living with brain injury. I'd like to thank again our friends, Brian Harris with MedRhythms, Dr. Kathleen Howland from the Berklee School of Music, our good friend Ernesto Diaz, also from the Berklee School of Music and a teacher at SLI. And we must thank all of Ernesto's friends who got together to provide the entertainment. Thank you very, very much. I also sincerely thank the sponsors. Those individuals who purchased tickets for the event tonight. Those individuals who donated online during the event tonight. Your support allows us to do our job. Your support allows us to help improve life for individuals living with brain injury. We thank you. Have a good evening.
Bye.